This is a brief lecture video to assigned readings you have from made available the first week of class. One is called Everyday Use by Alice Walker, and the other piece is called Not Vanity. So these two pieces were assigned because they're good pieces to read, especially everyday use. And there's several things that we can observe in them that are going to help make us better writers. So let's begin with everyday use. As you read through that piece, you will notice that it's a work of fiction, and as a result, it follows certain principles of structure. And one of the things of structure with any story is that it must have conflict, right? There must be a character that is at conflict with another character, or with the world at large, some sort of natural phenomenon, or with some sort of higher power, we might say, right? Or that character can be at conflict with something within herself. As you read everyday use, you should notice within the first page, really, that the conflict in this story involves the narrator, who you know is named Mama, and then it involves one of her daughters named Maggie, and it involves her other daughter named Dee. And then you will also notice that when the story begins, Mama and Maggie are waiting for Dee to arrive. Dee is coming in to pay the family a visit. But as you read further into the story, you should be asking yourself, why is Dee coming to visit the family? Because you will learn that Dee does not like her mom. Dee does not like her sister Maggie. And Dee doesn't like the home that she was raised in. So why is she coming back? And if we ask the question, why is Dee coming home, we need to ask another question, which is probably a more important question. Why is Mama letting her come home? And if Mama knows that Maggie and Dee don't get along, if Mama knows that Dee doesn't like her in the home, why is Mama going to allow this daughter of hers to return home? And as the story progresses, pay very close attention to all those details that are happening. You will see that as a story, not only does it have conflict that is being explored, it means that this conflict must go towards some end. There must be some sort of resolution, whether we like the way it ends, whether we don't. And I guarantee you that Alice Walker, all the things that happen at the end of the story, she has set the table for that at the very beginning. She doesn't surprise us with the ending, although it might not be the ending we've guessed, but it is an ending that she has earned. The other thing you'll notice as the story plays out is that this story, like all stories, involve cause and effect. Dee is coming to visit. That causes Mama to do something. And then Mama does something, and that has an effect on Maggie, and Maggie has to make choices. And then when Dee does arrive, what does that cause? And what is the effect of that cause? Your writing in this class must always involve some sort of conflict. Even if you're writing a research paper, what is the conflict you're exploring? Or what is the question you're trying to answer? What is the argument you're trying to make? And on that point, this story, Everyday Use, makes an argument. Not only does each character in the story make an argument, the story itself is trying to make an argument about something. And I think where I posted the story, I said that this story offers a very good meditation on love. So what is love? If you look closely in the story, you will find that Mama, who is the main character, if you ask this question, who or what does Mama love? You can ask that question of Maggie. You can ask that question of Dee. And I think you'll find that Mama loves her home and where she lives. She loves her yard. Notice what she says about the yard being an extension of the living room. Well, if she loves her yard, how can we support that claim based on the text? Well, look at how she takes care of the yard. Does she love Maggie? Well, what does she do to Maggie? One of the things she does is that she expects Maggie, she calls Maggie to come wait with her out in the yard as Dee arrives. And one of the things that love does is that it calls us to do things oftentimes we don't want to do because they're difficult. The challenge here is, just as love can call us to do things we ought to do, think of your parents maybe saying, hey, you've got to get up and you've got to go to school even though you don't want to get up right now. Evil, wearing the mask of love, can also seduce us, can woo us, can call us, can persuade and coerce us to do things that we really ought not to do. That's something worth thinking about. When Dee shows up, pay very close attention to how Mama describes the way that Dee is dressed. You'll pay attention to what Dee has done with her name. You'll find out why Dee has done something different with her name. And you'll also find that Mama, as she loves Maggie and also loves Dee, the argument can be made that with Mama being the main character, what does she want in this story? You will see that one of the things she wants is for her daughters and herself, for the three of them to get along. And love ultimately strives to unite, to make peace. As the story transpires, you will see that Mama must make a very difficult decision. She must choose to give an item. You'll find these quilts. She must make a choice. I promised to give them to Maggie. I promised to give them to Maggie for her wedding day. But Dee has shown up and Dee is asking for these quilts. What is Mama going to do? How can she love both daughters? How can Mama love and know her own family heritage and history and these quilts? What is she going to do? And with the decision she makes to take the quilts from Dee and to give them to Maggie, because that is the person to whom they have been promised. We have another revelation about love in the story. Love sometimes must say no. Now we go back to the very beginning of the story. We learn from Mama that the world never really tells Dee no. Maggie, the sister, who's not nearly as attractive, not nearly as quick-witted, doesn't dress nearly as well, and has suffered a great more deal than Dee. Maggie thinks the world never tells Dee no. And that's another thing we're thinking about. Someone who won't take no for an answer, and there's maybe some amazing things that you'll be able to accomplish. You're very driven. But when that attribute is turned up too high, and you become someone who will never take no for an answer, what type of person are you? So when Mama finally says no to Dee, you can see that it doesn't mean that Mama hates Dee. Evidence that Mama still loves Dee and loves Maggie. And then, of course, pay attention to the response. What is Maggie's response? What is Dee's response? And while Dee might have some very good arguments or bring up some important things for the family to talk about, and while Dee's perspective, Dee's way of seeing reality or of seeing a very specific thing about their family history, while there might be some validity to it, doesn't mean that she's right, doesn't mean that she's handling it perfectly. So even though this is a work of fiction, you can think about memories from your own life, moments in which there's maybe been some sort of conflict between you and your parents, or between you and your siblings, or with a coach or a teacher, or maybe some strife you've had within yourself. This is a very good opportunity for you to explore that. The other piece, not Vanity, that's been made available, the conflict there is that the narrator, the writer, has a job that he has shown up to do, and he doesn't want to do the job, because the job is very demanding physically, especially with the amount of time that's going to be required to finish the job and the setting, the conditions of the job, specifically the fact that it's very hot. And you'll notice what the writer does there, how the writer keeps up this idea that it is very hot. And rather than just saying it was a hot day, look at the language the writer uses to just drive home this, and this is a very difficult thing to do. And the writer in this piece is not at conflict with the other character who is his father, but he notices that his father is doing the same job and doesn't hesitate as much as the narrator does. And as they pursue getting this job done, the narrator adds on, here's how it gets more difficult. Because of the heat, as their clothes start to get more wet, they start to weigh things down, and then the gnats come in. This is just an unpleasant job. Notice that the writer then steps out of the plot, steps out of the cause and effect, and starts to reflect, and starts to think. The writer in this piece is saying something about manual labor, because manual labor involves the human, involves the man, the woman, involves the body of that person. The writer then starts to notice his father's body, the physicality of his father. Of course, the essay goes on and is making an argument about something. Is anything that involves our body, which is life itself, our bodies are going to start to break down. Doesn't matter how good an athlete one is, doesn't matter how beautiful one is, it doesn't matter how young we are, those things recede away and they don't come back. So the little question that's beneath this entire essay is, well, what's the point of living? What's the point of doing manual labor? And you will see that in Not Vanity, the writer drives home an idea that even though people who always have something going on or are always working and having a task, well, there might be something that they can learn to sit back and maybe enjoy a cup of coffee and have a conversation and take time maybe to be more reflective. The fact that they enjoy manual labor and do it to the best of their ability and do it well makes for a type of immortality. Notice the last line to that piece where the writer says, Father's work is the work of the ages, and the ages outlasts the grave. You'll notice the references that the writer makes to Ajax and Hector and Achilles and David. Some great references and connections that the writer uses, and you can do that kind of stuff with writing as well. And so where everyday use really hones in on a conflict between the family, Not Vanity is more of a conflict between the natural world, and both Alice Walker and then the writer in the other piece, they're making an argument of drawing things out of these stories that they want us to think about. They're drawing out things that they would like us to maybe agree with them on. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to. And so if you read these texts, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me and we can talk a little bit more about them. But you will also notice that on your online screen, you'll see that there are some invention exercises that have been made available. These are exercises you can use to look at your own personal experience and draw from those, because you will find some good material that you can use for the timed writing assignment and for the first paper writing assignment in this class. Thank you.